Hello everyone. Today I would like to present about my research paper entitled Responding to the Migrant Worker Mass Returned in Indonesia, a review of the recovery policy after COVID-19 outbreak. And my name is Bayu Mitra Kusuma from the PhD program in Asia Pacific Regional Studies, National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. I'm sorry if the sound little bit unclear because I take this video in the rain situation. Let's start from the introduction or the background of this research. The rapid spread of COVID-19 has forced government in various countries to impose large-scale lockdown and social restriction. Of course, this policy has consequences. First, economic recession in various countries. A record from the World Bank state that the global economic recession in 2020 after COVID-19 outbreak hit more than 90% of countries in the world. This broke the record ever after the World War II. Second, an extreme increase in unemployment. The decline in the pace of the economy result in reduced employment and increased unemployment. ILO suggests that the increase in global unemployment will reach 205 million people by 2022, very significant increase compared to 2019 or before pandemic. One of the group most affected by this situation is migrant worker. Most of these migrant workers are concentrated in the informal sector. The economic sector with temporary work duration, without adequate protection, low wages, and weak social protection, where most of them are dominated by women. Globally, migrant workers are a vulnerable group. They are often the first target of dismissal when there is a problem in their placement country. But ironically, they are also often the last group in assessing their rights, such as proper health service. In the implementation of response policy to COVID-19, migrant workers are often neglected. It is such as unemployment benefit, subsidy for daily necessity, and social security in various countries. Moreover, in some countries, informal jobs such as domestic assistant, construction worker, and agricultural worker are not considered as workers, so they cannot access worker insurance or health insurance. So many Indonesian migrant workers have experienced layoff or have been temporarily laid due to COVID-19 outbreak. Indeed, not all countries implement a full lockdown so that a number of Indonesian migrant workers can still work. For example, in Taiwan, which is able to control COVID-19 with various strict restriction policy. However, in reality, many countries have imposed full lockdown so that Indonesian migrant workers cannot work. As a result, more than 180,000 migrant workers decide to return to Indonesia due to the uncertain situation. Therefore, the phenomena of the mass return of Indonesian migrant workers requires special handling so that it doesn't become a disaster. And after the COVID-19 began to subside, everything can be controlled. The Indonesian government began implementing a policy to recover the departure of migrant workers. The Indonesian Ministry of Manpower claimed that the reason for reopening the placement of migrant workers is to support the acceleration of national economy recovery during the adaptation period of new habit or new normal. This is not easy because it requires a much more complex mechanism. Therefore, I think it is interesting to study in more depth how the Indonesian government implement the recovery policy after the mass return of Indonesian migrant workers due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Let's move to the literature review. Basically, there has been some research on the impact of the migrant workers mass return due to the COVID-19 outbreak and the government response to it. Harjana et al. Suggests that the mass return of Indonesian migrant workers is associated with potential depression, anxiety, and stress, although it is relatively low when compared to the general population of Indonesia. But the risk can be high in those with negative perception of health and susceptibility to disease. The second, Foley and Piper argued that COVID-19 further exposed and exacerbated the exploitation of Indian migrant workers in various South Asian and Middle Eastern countries. This is evident from the prevalence of unpaid or underpaid wages for the work that has been done. The situation encouraged them to return to India, even the situation in India is also bad and maybe more bad. Lekos and Newland reveals the fact that after the COVID-19 pandemic, more than 1 million Egyptians returned to work as migrant workers. The return of Egyptian migrant workers should be facilitated by the government to prevent more people from being stranded and remaining separated from their family. So if we look at the three recent studies above, it can be said that research on the government's policy response to recovering the process of redeparture of migrant workers is still very limited, especially if it discuss Indonesian migrant workers as was done in this study. Therefore, the novelty of this research is clear. Let's move to the research method. To obtain holistic research result, this research used a qualitative type of research. This study focused on Indonesia, a country that once listed as a country with a high risk of COVID-19 transmission. And to collect data related to this issue, the author conducted interview and literature studies. And considering that this research was conducted during the COVID-19 outbreak, the authors should be more careful to protect themselves and research person as a way to prevent the virus transmission. So we pay a big attention to health protocol. Okay, this is very important. Let's move to research finding. In restoring the situation and providing certainty for the future of migrant workers, the Indonesian government responded by issuing a recovery policy from two directions, namely a domestic recovery policy and foreign recovery policy. Let's start from the domestic recovery policy. The first one is issuing new standard operating procedure related to the implementation of health protocol in preventing the spread of COVID-19 in migrant worker placement company and abroad job training institution. In this case, the Indonesian Migrant Worker Protection Agency, or we call BP2MI, once again, BP2MI, issued circular letter concerning guidelines for the implementation of service for the placement of Indonesian migrant workers during the new normal period or new adaptation period. Since the termination of the placement of Indonesian migrant workers due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as many people have been delayed in their departure abroad. For this reason, BB2MI will prioritize the departure of prospective migrant workers who already have a work visa and have been registered with the national system. Priority delivery applies to prospective Indonesian migrant workers who are placed by company that already have a permit. Company that already have a permit from the for the recruitment of migrant worker. The circular letter contains several important points, namely ensuring the life safety aspect, ensuring the every stage of the placement process adheres to strict health protocol, and ensuring that there are no other costs imposed on prospective migrant worker. Second, improve coordination between government agency from central to regional level, from top to down, to prevent institutional miscoordination in protecting migrant workers. In this case, BB2MI is also coordinated with the chair of task force for the COVID-19 handling in Indonesia, who will request further direction from the coordinating minister for the economy as chair of the policy committee for national economic recovery. Regarding the PCR test financing scheme for prospective migrant workers, BB2MI ensure that they are not charged PCR examination fee, both in the placement process and when they arrive in the placement country. All of these are responded based on the decree of the Minister of Manpower, which states that the opening of the placement of migrant workers is carried out gradually and selectively. Once again, gradually and selectively in certain destinations, based on the recommendation of the representative of the Republic Indonesia, something like embassy and then Indonesian trade office, something like that. Okay, let's move to the foreign recovery policy. First, negotiation with the country of placement with a government-to-government or G2G scheme to ensure that migrant workers are ready to be resettled with strict health protocol. One of the G2G collaborations that have been well established so far is with Japan. In 2022, more than 200 Indonesian migrant workers will be officially released to Japan through the G2G program. The cooperation between the government of Indonesia and Japan is mutually beneficial. Currently, there are so many Japanese investment in Indonesia, in the automotive sector, trade, industry, service, and many more. In addition, this opportunity to work in Japan also can provide useful experience as well as various knowledge about the character of work, such as Japanese people, including how they adapt to the situation after COVID-19 and discipline in implementing health protocol. In addition to Japan, currently cooperation with G2G scheme has also been carried out with South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Germany, and Qatar. It is hoped that in the future, more countries will cooperate with the G2G system to ensure that migrant workers are ready to be resettled with strict health protocol. Second, encourage country of placement and country of transit to provide health insurance for migrant workers. So far, the coverage of health protection and insurance by the Indonesian government is only limited before departure and after returning home. In fact, the time when working is the biggest obstacle. So this is the big problem and homework from Indonesian government. Currently, the protection of Indonesian migrant workers abroad is carried out through insurance in the country of placement. However, it is not comprehensive because there are still many migrant workers who are not covered by insurance or health insurance. Therefore, the Indonesian government needs to encourage the country of placement so that migrant workers are required to be included in the existing insurance. For example, in Singapore, migrant workers are insured by their employer or user. The insurance is the employer's obligation in accordance with Singapore government regulation. Employers are required to purchase health insurance and occupational accident insurance for migrant workers. This insurance is a requirement when an employer wants to obtain a renew a migrant work permit. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all. That's my presentation. If you have any question, please send to my email or you can write your question in the comments column. Thank you very much. Terima kasih. 谢谢。再见。